Well, welcome, and we will begin the webinar Zoom meeting of the 26th annual meeting of the Russian-American Pacific Partnership. Actually, I'm going to hold for a second because the participants are cycling in at the moment. And we're holding, just waiting for the participants. It looks like it rolls in fairly slowly through Zoom. So okay, so we will begin the now the opening plenary session of the 26th annual meeting of the Russian-American Pacific Partnership. We are very pleased to have some very distinguished speakers joining us at this opening plenary. I want to begin with a advisement that Minister of Development of the Far East and Arctic, Alexei Chekunkov, had planned on joining us at this session, very much wanted to, and due to circumstances beyond his control, he was unable to be here. But he did send us his address, as he intended to make, and asked me to read that for you. And so we'll now switch to Mr. Chekunkov, and he says, "Dear colleagues, I welcome all the participants of the 26th annual meeting of the Russian-American Pacific Partnership. I am pleased to have the opportunity to address this platform, which plays an important role in maintaining the positive dynamics of Russian-American interregional cooperation. The pandemic complicates interactions and communication, and its consequences affects a number of trade and economic cooperation issues. At the same time, we are confident that the path of development using our advantages and strengthening international cooperation and trade and economic relations is the right way out of this crisis. Holding events such as RAPP confirms our mutual interest and common will to overcome our difficulties. We highly appreciate the RAPP Forum, which provides an important opportunity for a productive dialogue, and we see several priority areas for invigorating Russian-American cooperation in the Arctic. First, in the area of socio-cultural humanitarian cooperation on the basis of indigenous peoples. Secondly, cooperation in the field of adaptations to changes in climate, including permafrost degradation. Third, technological cooperation in the field of preventing and eliminating the consequences of man-made disasters and improving the environmental safety of economic projects. Interaction and exchange experience in these areas meets our common interests and can be a significant contribution to ensuring a sustainable development of the Arctic. In September 2020, the government of the Russian Federation approved the National Program for the Development of the Far East until 2024 and prospectively until 2035. Today, about 2,600 investment projects are underway in the Far East. More than 400 new enterprises are already operating in various industries. The world's largest free economic zone, with a total area of 5 million square meters, has been created in the Arctic, where an unprecedented package of state support measures is available to investors. We strive to maximize the advantages of a combination of these available resources, modern technologies, infrastructure provision, exceptional human capital, and export routes. We are ready to share best practices and success stories in the framework of an expert discussion of programs to attract foreign investment to the Russian Far East, which will be held on the second day of the RAPP meeting. Lee Kuan Yew called the Far East the last frontier available today. For us, this region is not just a storehouse of resources. This is the beachhead of the Russian presence in the Asia-Pacific region, a melding of our philosophy, growth dynamic, and quest towards effective management and development. We will always consider the Far East and the Arctic as territories for dialogue, peaceful and mutually beneficial international cooperation. Accordingly, a policy of partnership should shape the future of the Arctic. On May 20th, 2021, at the 12th Ministerial Session of the Arctic Council, the Russian Federation assumed chairmanship of the Council for the period 2021 to 2023. The agenda of the Russian chairmanship of the Arctic Council is based on sustainable development, the implementation of major intergovernmental economic and social projects. We are ready for an open dialogue and count on the support of our American partners. We highly value our cooperation in the Arctic and are convinced it plays a constructive role and provides for strengthening international dialogue and concrete actions in relevant areas of the Arctic agenda. It is important that the agenda of the RAPP meeting this year includes issues of development and the vital activities of indigenous communities in the Arctic. This is also one of the key areas of work of the Russian chairmanship. Russia has a program of state support for the traditional economic activities of the indigenous peoples of the Russian Federation, in which the development of traditional economic activities is combined with entrepreneurship promotion, training of indigenous population personnel, and the application of renewable energy in the Arctic. A standard of responsibility of investors in the Arctic zone in their relations to the indigenous peoples has been adopted. In conclusion, I would like to say a few words about the upcoming 6th Eastern Economic Forum on September 2 to 4. The forum is a proven tool for our work with foreign partners and companies investing in the Russian Far East. During the forum, we report on the results of our work and plans for the future and receive feedback from investors and guests of the event. We are proud that over the 5-year history of the Eastern Economic Forum, the leaders of China, India, the Republic of Korea, Japan, and Mongolia, and of course, Russian President Vladimir Putin have taken part. Within the framework of the forum, discussions and business sessions are held on the most acute and urgent problems of our time, with the participation of top-level representatives from official, business, scientific circles, as well as public opinion leaders. We invite our American partners to take part in the 6th Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok. I am convinced that interaction and exchange of experience within this platform meets our common interests and can be a significant contribution to the development of our cooperation in the Asia-Pacific region. We'll be glad to meet you in the Far East. I wish you a successful and fruitful participation in the RAPP 2021 annual meeting. Thank you, Alexei, Chekunkov. And before I proceed to introduce Sergei Ryabkov's address, I did want to also make sure that attendees are aware of the interpretation button at the bottom of their screen on the far right, the globe, where you can choose languages, Russian, English, should you need interpretation. So please be aware of the interpretation function. I apologize for not mentioning that at the top. I would now like to proceed to introduce the the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, Sergei Ryabkov. Sergei Ryabkov has enjoyed a variety of diplomatic posts in the central office of the Foreign Ministry, and abroad he was head of the OSCE desk of the Department of European Cooperation from 1995 to 1999. He was senior counselor and envoy extraordinaire and minister plenipotentiary at the embassy in the US. He served as director of the Department of European Cooperation from 2005 to 2008. And since August 2008, he has served as Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, where he holds the diplomatic rank of Ambassador Extraordinaire and Plenipotentiary. And with this, I will now present Sergei Ryabkov.
Уважаемые коллеги, дорогие друзья, рад приветствовать организаторов, участников и гостей 26-го заседания Российско-Американского Тихоокеанского партнерства, которое, что мне кажется весьма символичным, Дальнего Востока, России и Запада США. Все это говорит о том, что данный мир... Уважаемые коллеги, дорогие друзья, рад приветствовать организаторов, участников и гостей 26-го заседания Российско-Американского Тихоокеанского партнерства, которое, что мне кажется весьма символичным, впервые в своей долгой и славной истории проходит в формате видеоконференции. Отрадно, что современные технологии дают нам такую возможность, позволяя на время забыть об ограничениях и барьерах, связанных с глобальной пандемией коронавируса. Думаю, все мы глубоко внутри себя питаем надежду, что рано или поздно сможем собраться, как в старые добрые времена, где-нибудь в красивом российском или американском городе, без каких-либо санитарно-эпидемиологических условностей. На мой взгляд, особая ценность сегодняшнего мероприятия в том, что отмена прошлогоднего заседания РАПП не привела к угасанию этого формата. В этом году мы, напротив, фиксировали только усиление интереса со стороны официальных представителей, предпринимателей Дальнего Востока, России и Запада США. Все это говорит о том, что данный межрегиональный форум продолжает оставаться авторитетной и востребованной площадкой, нацеленной на решение конкретных, важных для обеих стран задач, не связанных с геополитикой. Мы рады, что добрая традиция продолжается. Повестка дня очередной сессии РАПП, как и ранее, охватывает широкий спектр вопросов, включающих двустороннее сотрудничество в области энергетики и энергосбережения, транспорта, туризма, торговли и инвестиций, культурного взаимодействия. Особое место займет тематика развития арктических регионов и перспектив взаимодействия на этом направлении. Представляя Министерство иностранных дел, не могу не сказать несколько слов о состоянии нашего двустороннего политического диалога. К сожалению, он продолжает находиться на довольно низком уровне, категорически не соответствующим потенциалу и роли наших государств в мировых делах. Хотя даже в этих обстоятельствах существует повод для осторожного оптимизма. На июньской встрече в Верхах в Женеве президентам России и США удалось сделать пусть и скромный, но крайне важный шаг к восстановлению нормальности между нашими странами. Необходимо теперь двигаться дальше. Россия к этому готова. Хорошим подспорьем могло бы стать наращивание взаимного торгово-инвестиционного взаимодействия. Видим, что геополитическая турбулентность и даже разного рода санкционные ограничения не мешают американским компаниям активно работать на российском рынке, а нашим фирмам за океаном. Как вы хорошо знаете, деловики из США стали самой представительной делегацией на недавнем Петербургском международном экономическом форуме, что подтверждает их непоколебимое намерение сохранять свое присутствие в России как на стратегическом для себя рынке. Что ж, надеюсь, взаимные инвестиции будут со временем только расти. Другой важный вопрос в рамках двусторонней повестки дня В ходе встречи в Женеве президент России высказал идею о возрождении формата двусторонней комиссии, где были бы представлены экономические ведомства и заинтересованные предприниматели наподобие комиссии Черномырдин-Гор, а затем президентской, но не бюрократически тяжеловесной. Считаем, что это своевременная и востребованная инициатива, которая позволила бы перезапустить ранее хорошо зарекомендовавшую себя площадку. Уверен, что РАТОП мог бы стать своего рода генератором полезных идей для последующего рассмотрения в таком формате. Позвольте еще раз поблагодарить всю команду организаторов за неустанные, самоотверженные усилия по сближению России и США. Желаю участникам РАТОП успешной работы в интересах укрепления российско-американского сотрудничества. Благодарю за внимание и до новых встреч, надеюсь, уже в очном формате. Уважаемые коллеги, дорогие друзья,
Okay, I very much appreciate Deputy Minister Sergei Ryabkov's willingness to address the forum. He is currently traveling, and so I apologize that his address had to be in a recorded format, which was the only option for us. But he's definitely been a strong supporter of our forum over many years, and personally has attended a number of the RAPP meetings. It is now a great honor to introduce John J. Sullivan, who was nominated as the U.S. Ambassador to the Russian Federation on October 11th, 2019, confirmed by the Senate December 2019 and sworn in December 2019. And in January 2021, he was asked by President Biden to continue his service as ambassador to Russia. Ambassador Sullivan previously served as the Deputy Secretary of State from May 2017 through 2019 and Acting Secretary of State in April 2018. Prior to joining the Department of State, Ambassador Sullivan was a partner with the law firm Meyer Brown, and from 2010 to 2016, he was the chairman of the U.S.-Iraq Business Dialogue. Ambassador Sullivan served in 2 prior administrations in senior positions at the Justice, Defense, and Commerce Departments, and it is a great honor to have Ambassador Sullivan join us here today.
Thank you, Derek, and good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, depending on where you're located, to all of the participants in this RAPP session. It's a great honor for me to join you, bring you greetings from the U.S. Embassy in Moscow, and I hope that everyone is doing well despite the pandemic. And as my dear friend, Deputy Foreign Minister Ryabkov says, we hope that at some point we're going to be able to meet in person, although it is good that we're able to have this 26th annual session of the Russian-American Pacific Partnership virtually. Before I get started, I want to thank Derek Norberg and his team. Derek, thank you for all of your hard work and your colleagues in putting this conference together. It's great to see so many representatives from government and the private sector have gathered virtually for this critical dialogue. The Russia Far East has obvious strong ties to the greater North Pacific region, and the dialogue during this session will help inform our shared goal of moving forward. As the Deputy Foreign Minister just said, it's no secret that the U.S.-Russia relationship is facing fairly significant challenges. We all know the many areas where our countries disagree, but as President Biden has made clear, the United States, and he said this in Geneva, seeks a stable, predictable relationship with Russia. And during that Geneva meeting, our president shared his vision for a U.S.-Russia relationship with President Putin. President Biden reiterated his belief that our nation should be able to cooperate where it's in our mutual interests. And I believe, and I'm sure everyone participating in this session would agree, that the Russian Far East and American North Pacific have much in common and present many opportunities for collaboration between our two countries. For example, one of the basic functions of any U.S. embassy is to promote business and trade. And as the U.S. ambassador to Russia, I take pride in promoting American products and services in American business and their investments here in Russia. Despite the limitations imposed by the pandemic, our team here at the embassy and I support U.S. companies in Russia wherever possible. In fact, I had a very productive meeting yesterday with Minister Antonov, the Minister of Trade and Industry. What I'm not sure many on this call will recognize, or that many are aware of this statistic, but it bears mentioning because it's a very significant economic indicator of our relationship. We now have over 1,150 U.S. companies doing business in Russia today, and many of them are doing business in the Russia Far East. I understand that there are challenges for companies that do business here, just as there are for any company, any U.S. company doing business around the world in a country that is not its home. And one of my jobs as ambassador, as it is for any U.S. ambassador, is to be an advocate for U.S. business, intercede on their behalf, and try to improve the business climate. And as I say, I've made that a priority of my tenure here as ambassador. But the U.S.-Russia bilateral relationship is far more than just commercial transactions. During times like this, when our two governments don't see eye to eye on many issues, annual gatherings like the RAPP assume even greater importance. Engagement between business people, entrepreneurs, academics, students, civic leaders is more critical now than ever. The bonds that are formed between and among all of those groups of people and the participants in this session become the foundation of our relationship and provide ballast when our official relationship is strained as it is now. We need more such opportunities to explore the many avenues of cooperation in a variety of areas, from commerce to culture and science and education. And I look forward to hearing from you of the new partnerships and projects that come out of this session. I also want to note that even though our Consulate General in Vladivostok has suspended its public operations, the U.S. mission in Russia is committed as ever to our relationship with the Russian Far East. It's unfortunate that COVID-19, the pandemic, when it hit last year, and then a subsequent dramatic reduction in our staffing levels, have forced us to change our footprint in Vladivostok. But through events like this, the U.S. Embassy in Moscow will continue to actively engage across this vast country. In Washington, in Moscow, and throughout Russia, my colleagues and I are going to work as hard as we can to improve the situation, not just for businesses in Russia, U.S. businesses in Russia, but for everyone who benefits from good relations between our two countries. Our two countries, our two peoples have too much at stake to do anything less than that. I also want to take a moment to highlight another significant area where our two companies, our two governments, have common interest, and that is tackling our changing climate and the climate challenge we face. As you know, Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, John Kerry, our former Secretary of State, just wrapped up a trip to Moscow. I was honored to host him here for several days. During his visit, he and his Russian counterparts had the opportunity to discuss climate issues in detail. He and counterparts across the Russian government agreed that climate is an issue that must be addressed with seriousness and urgency. Our countries have pledged their intent to work together bilaterally on a range of climate-related issues, including satellite monitoring of emissions and removal of greenhouse gases, forests and agriculture, climate in the Arctic, including black carbon, reducing emissions from non-CO2 gases, including methane, enhance nationally determined contributions and long-term strategies under the Paris Agreement, energy efficiency, climate finance, nature-based solutions, and implementation of joint climate projects. It was a lengthy agenda that Secretary Kerry brought with him here to Moscow, and he was very pleased to engage, as I said, with senior government officials, including a lengthy telephone call with President Putin to discuss the climate challenge. Of course, the Russian Far East is critical for many of these issues, and I'm sure that environmental protection will factor heavily in the conversation during this year's conference. So in closing, it's heartening to see that this year's RAPP conference is continuing to bring Russians and Americans together to find areas of mutual interest and collaboration. I look forward to hearing more from you about your ideas on interregional cooperation between Russia and the US, and how our two nations can strengthen and deepen our ties today and for years and generations to come. I wish you great success in formulating recommendations designed to open new opportunities and strengthen relations between our two countries. So thank you. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Derek.
Let's see here. Hold on a second. Thank you, Ambassador Sullivan, and very much appreciate your joining us in launching this year's annual meeting. Your cooperation is very important to our forum. It's my privilege to introduce Anatoly Antonov, Ambassador to the United States of the Russian Federation. He was appointed ambassador in August 2017. For more than 3 decades, he has served in the Soviet and Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where he has specialized in arms control. He previously served as the ministry's director for security and disarmament, and in 2009 led Russia's delegation negotiating the new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, the New START. He was appointed Deputy Minister of Defense in 2011 and Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs in 2016. Yes. And so I will now turn it over to Anatoly Antonov.
Спасибо большое, дорогие друзья. Я вам признателен за приглашение и возможность выступить на мероприятии, которое имеет уникальный формат. Благодаря РАПП сегодня для нас стираются тысячи километров расстояний и десятки часовых поясов. Установлена прямая связь между Москвой, Вашингтоном, Аляской, Сибирью и Дальним Востоком. Фактически создан кругосветный телемост. Это подтверждает глобальный характер российско-американских связей, нашу географическую и историческую близость, а также особую ответственность за международную безопасность. Не секрет, что двусторонние отношения переживают непростой период. Недавно в Женеве Владимир Владимирович Путин и Джо Байден обсудили практически все ключевые двусторонние вопросы. Достигнуты понимания, или как назвал их наш президент, зорницы доверия. Это та основа, от которой мы отталкиваемся сегодня в работе. Невозможно переоценить тот значительный стабилизирующий потенциал, который кроется в прямых межрегиональных связях. В условиях, когда межправительственный диалог отягощен, отдельные американские штаты и субъекты Российской Федерации могут с большей легкостью находить точки соприкосновения, опираться на приоритеты внутреннего развития, которые схожи для Тихоокеанского измерения. Сегодня востребован опыт, обмен опытом и содействие в борьбе с коронавирусом. Победить пандемию можно только сообща. Одновременно в авангард выходят проблемы защиты окружающей среды, борьбы с природными и техногенными катастрофами, например, лесными пожарами. Так ежегодно с этой напастью сталкиваются Запад Соединенных Штатов Америки и Российская Сибирь. В настоящее время огнем охвачены штаты Вашингтон, Орегон и Калифорния. У нас тяжелая ситуация в Якутии. Почему бы властям на местах не наладить диалог по этой теме? Уверен, это серьезно дополнит повестку РАПП. Среди участников Тихоокеанского партнерства арктические регионы двух стран. В первую очередь это Чукотка и Аляска. Для них актуальной является проблема сохранения уникальной идентичности северных народов, сбережения хрупкой экосистемы Заполярья, энергетической стабильности, обеспечения судоходства во льдах. Выступаем за восстановление работы региональной комиссии Берингового пролива с подключением представителей коренного населения. Стоит возобновить совместные академические исследования между вузами Аляски и Российского Дальнего Востока. Хотел бы отметить успешно развивающееся взаимодействие между береговыми охранами Соединенных Штатов Америки и России в районе Берингового пролива и Чукотского моря. Там же активно работает группа совместного планирования по ликвидации разливов нефти. Нам надо вместе защищать совместное культурно-историческое наследие. Тихоокеанское измерение богато общими памятниками. Это бывшие российские фактории в Ситке на Аляске и Форт Росс в Калифорнии. Мы никогда не забудем славные годы сотрудничества во времена Второй мировой войны. Прежде всего, речь о воздушной трассе снабжения Аляска-Сибирь. Значительный потенциал у побратимских связей. Только с Аляской имеется 6 пар породненных городов, в том числе Владивосток, Джуна, Магадан, Коридж, Якутск, Фэрбэнкс. Нам нужны крупные инвестпроекты. Сибирь и Дальний Восток – это не только богатые сырьевые ресурсы, но и серьезный человеческий капитал. В этой связи приглашаем руководство и коммерческие компании западных штатов к участию в 6-м Восточном экономическом форуме во Владивостоке 2-4 сентября. Потенциал связи через Тихий океан огромен. Они свободны от противоречий, исторически свойственных атлантическому измерению. Тем более, что Россия – третий по близости сосед США после Канады и Мексики. Нам необходимо увеличить обмен между нашей молодежью, между нашими специалистами в различных областях. А вообще моей мечтой является восстановление авиасообщения между Аляской и Чукоткой. Желаю продуктивной дискуссии участникам заседания РАПП. Всего вам самого доброго.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Antonov, and thank you for your kind words on the vision of the potential of the Russian-American Pacific Partnership, and your staff for all of their help in coordinating or arranging this meeting. It's my pleasure to introduce James DeHart. Jim DeHart is a career member of the Senior Foreign Service with 28 years of experience as a U.S. diplomat. He holds the rank of Minister Counselor. Jim was appointed as U.S. Coordinator for the Arctic region in July 2020. He brings significant experience in regional security, civilian military cooperation, and international negotiations. A hallmark of his career has been close collaboration with U.S. allies and partners to advance our shared interests and values. And with this, it gives me pleasure to pass the floor to James DeHart.
Derek, thanks so much. And hello to everybody who's participating today. It's great to be here. I appreciate the invitation from the RAPP. I appreciate joining Ambassador Sullivan in Moscow and many old friends and colleagues here. The Arctic is a region of stable engagement between the United States and Russia. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about U.S. policy towards the Arctic region. I think in this format, it's very constructive to do this at the subnational level as well. with the participation of the business sector, municipal leaders, regional leaders, our state of Alaska, which is a very important player in the set of issues. But let me just start with a headline. The United States seeks an Arctic region that is free of conflict, that is peaceful and low tension, where nations act responsibly, where economic development and investment takes place in a sustainable way with high standards and in a way that benefits the communities of the region, including indigenous peoples, and is of course all aligned with our important goals on climate change. And in pursuing this, this vision, we take a comprehensive and an integrated policy approach to the region, which means giving attention to the full set of issues important in the Arctic, from climate change to scientific collaboration more generally, safety, security, environmental protection, local livelihoods. And we take this broad approach because the challenges of a warming, more accessible Arctic are broad, they're wide, and they're interconnected. And our approach in the Arctic starts, as it does elsewhere in the world, with upholding international rules and institutions. And make no mistake, there is strong governance in the Arctic region based on national sovereignty and based on international law. We and other Arctic states have mostly, for the most part, abided by these frameworks that exist. And it's very important that we continue to do so. And I would say the same for countries that desire to be present in the Arctic from outside of the Arctic region, also need to respect the international rules and the frameworks that exist. This is how we will keep it low tension. And I think also observance of international law concerning the management of resources, concerning freedom of navigation, the right of transit. Adherence to these rules goes hand in hand with successful economic development across the region. We have strong institutions in the Arctic, notably the Arctic Council, which we view as the premier forum for cooperation in the region and for discussion of governance matters. It's been very successful over 25 years. And I think that Russia also attaches great importance to the work of the Arctic Council. And so this is a perspective that the United States and Russia share. Now, when Russia took over the chairmanship of the Arctic Council at the ministerial in May, Secretary Blinken, who led the US delegation, welcomed Russia's incoming chairmanship. And we pledged, together with other Arctic Council members, our readiness to cooperate with Russia through its chairmanship. And we are committed to doing that. I do want to highlight the principle of consensus in the Arctic Council that has served this forum so well over 25 years. I think that by consulting early and consulting often with its fellow Arctic Council members on its initiatives from the chairmanship, on its events, Russia can increase the likelihood that its chairmanship will be successful, and it will meet its stated goal of further strengthening the Arctic Council long into the future. And we see real potential for cooperation in the context of the Arctic Council during Russia's chairmanship on issues such as community health, marine litter, response to wildfires, as Ambassador Antonov mentioned, and also oil pollution preparedness and other issues. We value very much the close cooperation between our respective coast guards, both in the Arctic Council Coast Guard Forum, and also professionally. There's or bilaterally. There is a good and constructive professional relationship there that we want to continue and take forward. And of course, we need to work together to tackle the crisis of climate change. As colleagues are aware, the Arctic is warming 3 times faster than the global average. The dramatic changes are right in front of us. And as Ambassador Sullivan mentioned, Special Presidential Envoy John Kerry was recently in Moscow, had discussions on the problem of black carbon and methane emissions and how best to address those. We need to work to curb these harmful emissions, both through the Arctic Council and through other means, including working with industry to transition to cleaner technology. And I know that this is a topic of great interest, I think, importance to many of you listening now. And there's a lot of great work that can be done at the subnational level, at the state level, municipal level, regional level, and in partnership with the indigenous peoples of the region who have generations of knowledge, and they know how to be good stewards of the natural environment. And I think that if you're living in Utqiagvik or Nuuk or Kamchatka, you may have more in common in terms of the challenges you face and the solutions you need to find than those of us living in Washington or Moscow. So as everyone I think is aware, the security dimensions of the Arctic have seized a lot of attention in recent years. And our eyes are open to the security challenges in the region, and we will address those with determination together with our allies and partners. But as Secretary Blinken reminded us in Reykjavik, the Arctic is more than a strategically or economically significant region. It's home to our people. Its hallmark has been and must remain peaceful cooperation. And it's our responsibility to protect that cooperation. So I thank the RAPP for contributing to this dialogue, for doing its part in this effort to strengthen cooperation moving forward. So I thank you again very much for the invitation, Derek, and back over to you.
Great. Thank you very much, James DeHart, for joining us. Very much appreciate your being with us and sharing your important perspectives as U.S. coordinator for the Arctic region. And that is a region that has over the years increasingly become important in the RAPP forum discussions. It is now my pleasure to introduce Matthew Rojansky. Matthew Rojansky serves as the director of the Kennan Institute at the Woodrow Wilson Center in Washington, D.C. He is also adjunct professor at the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies and presently serves as U.S. Executive Secretary for the Dartmouth Conference and as a member of the OSCE Cooperative Security Initiative and the Euro-Atlantic Security Leaders Group. Previously, Rojansky served as Deputy Director of the Russia and Eurasia Program at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace and as the Executive Director of the Partnership for Secure America. In these roles, he's worked on projects to support U.S.-Russia health cooperation and initiatives aimed at repairing the U.S.-Russian relationship and strengthening the U.S. commitment to nuclear arms control and non-proliferation. So great pleasure to have Matthew Rojansky join us.
Well, thank you very much, Eric, for that introduction, and thank you to my distinguished fellow panelists. It's certainly an honor, and it's also a pleasure for me to speak to the Russian-American Pacific Partnership today. Though I currently work in Washington, some of you may know that I'm a Northern Californian originally, and I think I always will be. So I am looking forward to opportunities to come back to the West Coast of the United States. For example, the annual Fort Ross Dialogue, which I've been a participant in, the Graduate Initiative in Russian Studies at Monterey, Stanford's Russia Forum, various programs at Lawrence Livermore Lab, and many other wonderful resources. RAPP's mission is complementary to all of these, but it's also clearly distinct. It's to knit together US and Russian regions which border on the Pacific through deepening economic ties. As you mark your 26th year, I've been asked to put RAPP's mission into the context of what's going on now in the bilateral relationship. As you may imagine, that conversation is not all sunny weather, despite the prevailing summertime weather conditions in my home state. What place is there, after all, for groups like RAPP that seek to unite our countries when leaders, prominent media voices, and powerful interests on both sides seem bent on driving the countries apart? If the relationship were to continue to deteriorate at the same rate as it has in recent years, at first glance, the answer would be not very encouraging at all. But the first glance answer leaves out a critical element. The US-Russia relationship is clearly too important to the citizens of both nations to leave it solely in the hands of politicians, whose short-term interests concerning the relationship might push relations into zero-sum conflict with long-term consequences for all of us. Fortunately, we have groups and organizations more rooted in connecting people than scoring political points. Groups like RAPP, Fort Ross, SURF on the West Coast, as well as back east, the Dartmouth Dialogues, the Open World Leadership Center, indeed the Wilson Center's Kennan Institute, which I'm privileged to lead. There are also wonderful groups like Rotary and the World Affairs Councils, university exchange programs that connect Russians and Americans through their common interests, and many, many more groups that I haven't named. Groups like these are always important, but their roles are most essential at a time like this when relations are strained, because they keep open vital lanes of direct contact, dialogue, and exchange. What I'm trying to say is that when prospects for normalizing the US-Russian bilateral relationship seem bleak, conventional wisdom would tell you that RAPP and like-minded groups are not able to play much of a positive role. I think we need to flip that conventional wisdom on its head. The role for groups committed to keeping and developing ties between Russians and Americans has never been more important, and it remains important now and in the years ahead. We might also be on the cusp of a broader positive change in the bilateral relationship. Let me emphasize the might part, возможно. Both presidents wisely kept expectations low in the lead up to the recent summit in Geneva, and both presidents emerged with the opportunity of an off-ramp from the current vicious cycle of action and reaction towards what President Biden has repeatedly called his goal of stable and predictable relations. Bear in mind, this is no reset. This is not a reincarnation of presidential or vice presidential commissions that we've seen in the past, and there will be no effort to stack the deck with lots of memoranda of understanding, lots of announcements to show momentum, when in reality dialogue is bogged down in difficult and perhaps unresolvable issues. One example of the most difficult is on the very nature of our two political systems. It is hard to imagine finding anything like common ground on what we consider to be fundamental human rights, democratic principles, and rule of law. Where we're headed now, though, is fitting. We acknowledge on both sides that we may be able to identify areas of shared interests, but we neither claim nor seek a pretense of shared values. At the same time, we're honest about many areas in which our interests diverge. I'm reminded here of President Biden's phrase describing his Russian counterpart as, quote, a worthy adversary. Both parts of that term are important because it conveys both honesty and respect. So conflict between Russia and the United States continues and will continue, but there's no reason the two governments cannot negotiate and even cooperate in certain areas and on certain issues. Here's where the true potential for RAPP and its mission of bolstering interregional relations lies. Consider the following. It is very true that both Russians and Americans living in the Pacific region are subject to the constraints on engagement that are felt by all of us everywhere. On both sides, it is also true that domestic challenges, like the pandemic, limit bandwidth to focus on even the small steps that could be taken at local levels to improve relations, trade, tourism, cultural exchange, to name just a few examples. But I would like to think that the window is reopening for attention and investment, and the opportunity should not be missed. In our shared neighborhood of the Northern Pacific and the Arctic, these are especially pressing. Think about the following. Managing energy extraction and transit, including climate threats ranging from global warming to disastrous spills, and I might add, fires. Managing northern fishing areas that are being increasingly accessed by fleets from outside the region. Cooperation on issues related to Arctic development, especially access to the increasingly important Northern Sea Route via the Bering Strait. and maintaining dialogue with and about indigenous populations in the Arctic and how all the issues I mentioned impact them locally and us globally. Ambassador DeHart certainly covered this territory in much greater detail, so I'll stop there. RAPP, in partnership with many local and national organizations and even governments represented here in this gathering, is an excellent position to help lead on these issues and on others. So let me close by congratulating Derek and RAPP for the many accomplishments of the past quarter century. But also let me charge this group, along with its past, present, and future partners, with the following challenge. Be ready to seize on new opportunities, to develop interregional relationships between the Pacific region of Russia and the United States in the years ahead. You are ideally poised to serve as a catalyst for deeper engagement. But, однако, even in the best of conditions, that will require patience and perseverance to succeed. You must also be ready to sustain and promote regional engagement should our respective centers fail in their recent progress towards more stable, predictable relations. In both cases, I recommend you be open to working through multilateral organizations and initiatives like the aforementioned Arctic Council, where and whenever you can. At all times, look to sustain bilateral exchanges between peoples where they already exist and to restore them where they have lapsed. In pursuing your mission, you will help ensure that the inflection point in the bilateral relationship that I hope we are at today, in fact, is a lasting and successful one. But no matter what, I have confidence that RAPP has both the proven track record in the past and the potential today to play a vital role connecting our nations through interregional relations. And I stand ready to help. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Matthew. Really appreciate your joining us and appreciate all of your comments. And we certainly would be very pleased to work with you going forward and certainly to continue communication with you. Your insight is very much appreciated. I now would like to introduce a friend of mine for many years and someone we worked with years ago, and I continue to work with now this past year, I'm pleased to say, and that is Ambassador Tom Armbruster. Thomas Armbruster was U.S. Ambassador to the Republic of the Marshall Islands from 2012 to 2016. His last assignment before retiring after a 28-year diplomatic career. Ambassador Armbruster joined the Foreign Service in 1988 and served overseas in Russia, Tajikistan, Mexico, Cuba, and Finland. He received Career Achievement Meritorious and Superior Honor Awards from the State Department. He is author of a book, How to Become an Ambassador, an American Foreign Service Odyssey. And I suspect a key to becoming an ambassador is having been a great consul general. And he was consul general in Vladivostok, Russia from 2007 to 2010. And I will first launch a video.
The Russian proverb says good fellowship is the best wealth. When we're talking about the Russian Far East, richness, but not wealth, is a good place to start. The land is rich with gold, diamonds, endless forests, stunning wildlife like Siberian tigers and Amur leopard, and a coast teeming with marine life, not to mention oil and gas. From the land of real people in Chekunkov in the far north to Avar on the Russia-China border. The Sakhalin and the Sea of Okhotsk, the Yakutia, from Luzon and Orson. It's a bountiful and beautiful landscape covering over 2.5 million square miles. As for people, if not rich in numbers, the Far East is rich in cultures. The Nanette, Chukchi, and Sakha people have centuries-old cultures that still endure, along with traditional art, like the mouth harp or home played by the Sakha people, horse racing, and fermented milk drinking in Yakutia, and reindeer herding in Chekunkov. You can see the rich indigenous experience in the wonderful movie Der Symbologist, The true story of a friendship of an indigenous man, Ersu, and the Russian Soviet explorer Arsenyev, an historical giant himself. Arsenyev survived through Ersu's deep connection with nature, especially tigers, unforgettable. The history is also rich. Civilizations and empires have risen and fallen in the Far East. We can imagine emissaries crisscrossing the region, visiting kings and queens of the Bohai civilization in the Qing dynasty. There are touchstones to the ancient civilization, with the ruins of a Bohai castle found in Timor-Leste, for example. Tracing volcanic blast in the Far East, scientists have seen evidence of vast trading networks covering thousands of miles. Glass apparently used as currency. So there are physical artifacts you can see and touch of ancient civilization. For Americans, reminders of our history are there, but sometimes artifacts are hard to find. Americans can be particularly proud that African-American Richard T. Greener was the first American State Department official sent to Vladivostok. Greener was also the first African-American to graduate from Harvard in 1870. He himself petitioned the State Department to open the mission, given what he saw as the Far East's economic and strategic importance. Although when he got to post, he joked about his Siberian exile. He served as commercial agent from 1898 to 1905 when the Russo-Japanese War broke out. Another thing we can see are photos of American soldiers on the streets of Vladivostok during the Russian Civil War. The American Expeditionary Force totaled 7,950 officers and enlisted men. The first American troops disembarked in August 1918. They guarded the railway and helped the Czechoslovak legion evacuate Russia. Their mission, as General Graves understood it, did not include fighting the Bolsheviks. Repeatedly calling for restraint, Graves often clashed with commanders of British, French, and Japanese forces who wanted him to take a more active part in the military intervention. The experience for the soldiers was miserable. Problems with fuel, ammunition, supplies, and food were widespread. Forces, accustomed to temperate climates, were unable to function in sub-zero Russia. Water-cooled machine guns froze. The last American soldiers left on April 1st, 1920. During their 19 months, 189 soldiers died from all causes. General Winter, or General Frost, however you want to translate Zima in the Russian cold, took his hold again, just as was the case with the Polish and the Germans in World War II. Another thing you can see and touch is a statue of world-famous actor Yul Brynner, engraved at the square in Vladivostok. The Brynner family hailed from Vladivostok and had numerous business ventures before they fled the civil unrest and eventually made their way to the United States. Yul's son Locke is a regular visitor to the Pacific Meridian International Film Festival, and his book chronicles the Brynner family adventures. Other early Americans include Eleanor Frey, who chronicled her life in Vladivostok from 1894 to 1930 with letters home. Her book is published in English and Russian. It's an important historical look at the region. Her statue and home are still there. Moving ahead in time, you can still see an American train at the Vladivostok station, the end or beginning of the Trans-Siberian Railway. Shipped there as part of the Lend-Lease program in World War II. The U.S. sent munitions, food, and supplies to the Soviets to keep the front of the Nazi onslaught. 27 U.S. cargo ships were transferred to the Soviet Far Eastern State Shipping Company, Pesco, a well-known Vladivostok-based company. 50% of Lend-Lease goods came through the Pacific route, $11 billion worth of vital equipment. One of the most historically significant interactions took place on November 23rd and 24th, 1974. President Gerald Ford came to Vladivostok, and his request, by the way, because he saw a documentary about tigers in the Far East, and he and Soviet Premier Brezhnev reached an arms control agreement that would limit both countries to an equal aggregate number of various weapons, including strategic nuclear delivery vehicles and submarine-based missiles and intercontinental ballistic missiles. The summit was a success and a high point in the era of the time. The two leaders reportedly got along well, but I don't think President Ford got to be inside. You can stay in the Opiansky Sanatorium, where they negotiated, and even visit the restaurant where they relaxed on sports in the 80s. Indigenous to Cooking in Alaska
significant that there were numerous individual properties and cultural revivals, and finally, their lasting links that brought even more people together. That is also visit on-again, off-again stories, and the potential for tourism remains largely untapped. Some of the history is astounding. 800 children were evacuated from war-torn Russia in 1921, transported across Russia to Vladivostok, then off to San Francisco, to New York, and finally back home to Petrograd, thanks to American Red Cross volunteers. This story could be a Hollywood movie and is a chapter in a forthcoming book by Tony Allison called America May, Russia in its Wild East. The point is that American intention in this part of the world can sometimes be quite humanitarian and good. I participated in a goodwill flight back from the governor of Alaska to the people of Magadan in the late 1990s. It was a particularly cold winter in Magadan, which is really thankful. And the people of Alaska sent an airlift of food and supplies to at least warm the hearts of their neighbors, if not actually help in a trying time. I suspect the people of Magadan know something about getting by through hard winters. For the consulate, our little slice of history so far starts in 1992 when Consul General Randy Lippo made his way to this far coast and set up shop in the formerly closed city, helping American citizens who made their way there and offering consular services to Russians who questioned about visas, immigration, and America in general. Another early Consul General, James Corey, was for the first time in a 2004 interview with the Association for Diplomatic Studies and Trade. The consulate was pretty much the end of the earth, he said, but we managed to bring in people who were doing that, and we had, I think, a really good group of folks. It meant that we reached out to a lot of support from distant or perhaps non-traditional partners. We were very close with our NGOs. Many of them were operating on USAID contracts, but we brought them into the country. We had excellent relations with the U.S. Pacific Fleet, linked with the U.S. border. We created delightful bureaucratic disconnect within the U.S. government because, of course, the consulate reported to the embassy in Moscow, which was part of the European Bureau, yet our primary partner was out in the Pacific, where we had the straddle book. Ship visits have been a staple of the consulate's work, with sailors strolling the streets of Vladivostok, taking part in community projects, playing volleyball and soccer, and even taking part in chef competitions in Vladivostok. For me, during my time as Consul General, I saw a lot of promising things. We hosted an American astronaut, Albert Drew, who joined cosmonaut Alexander in a movie scene. I can tell you, astronauts and cosmonauts are even more popular than rock stars. Full disclosure, my wife danced with Alexander, and I'm still jealous. Not that American rocker Alice Cooper wasn't a hit when he came to the consulate. He was a great cultural ambassador. What do these disparate points in history add up to? Well, potential and peril. The fact that we can be powerful allies and determined adversaries has played out in Vladivostok. Lend-Lease showed the power of our alliance, and President Ford and Premier Brezhnev's summit showed our ability to compromise in the midst of Cold War competition. I would say the future is up to us. As the babushka says, babushka gadala, da, na dvoje skazala, to li dojdik, to li sneg, to li будет, to li нет. We'll see what we'll see. Maybe rain, maybe snow, maybe yes, maybe no. It could go either way. But unlike the weather, the future is up to us. For now, the U.S. consulate's operations are suspended, and throughout Russia, the Russian staff, who we relied on and were often the heart and soul of our missions, have been recalled by the Russian government. Both countries could do better. A consulate extends the reach of an ambassador, and when you're 7 time zones away, that's critical. The work is important, I know. I wouldn't have done it for 3 years otherwise. To everyone who has served in Vladivostok, in our far post, both Russians and Americans, thank you. Spasibo bolshoy. One more Russian proverb. Ni imej 100 rublей, a imej 100 друзей. Don't have 100 rubles, have 100 friends. This is a partnership, and I know over the years there have been some great Russian-American friendships. Those connections are part of the richness of this special part of the world.
I congratulate Russian-American Pacific Partnership and the Council for U.S.-Russia Relations for playing such a vital role over the years in bringing people together, advocating for business and cultural exchange, and advancing both U.S. and Russian interests through its vast network of people in both countries. Non-governmental organizations like these help the two governments get through difficult times when the governments, often understandably and legitimately, have disagreements that affect the business world and even individual travelers. Real people can help get this relationship back on track. There's a lot of work to do. As Yuri Gagarin said, "Поехали." Let's go. Доброе братство.
Well, thank you very much, Tom Armbruster. And of course, Tom is with us here, so I want to turn the floor over to him for any additional comments that he would care to make.
Thanks, Derek. Yeah, it's good to hear the other panelists talk about their sense of cautious optimism. And I think when you look at groups like RAPP, and you also look at the success of the Antarctic Treaty, for example, regional organizations can come up with solutions in areas where there are common interests. And so I think I'm also cautiously optimistic. And I would like to say one more time, thanks to all the Russian staff who worked at the consulate. It's sad personally for me to know that we're not in full swing there, knowing the good work we can do. But to all the Americans and Russians who worked there, it was a special place and a special time. And I hope before long we're back in business and doing the things that we can do for both countries.
Great. Well, thank you, Tom. And I really appreciate your joining here in this meeting and the opportunity to work with you on a variety of initiatives and ideas, and always value your advice and wisdom. And with that, I want to thank all of our speakers today. I really appreciate the very high level participation that we have enjoyed at launching this year's 26th annual meeting. I appreciate everyone's input and suggestions and words of encouragement as we launch this meeting. We will continue with the rest of the program with our next session starting actually a short 7 hours from now when we begin our dialogue more directly with the regions of the Russian Far East, starting here at 4 p.m. Pacific time and early morning the next day in the Russian Far East. And in closing just today's session, I wanted to just share that while there certainly remain serious differences and disagreements between our countries, we're very encouraged by both the summit in Geneva as well as the special presidential envoy for the climate, John Kerry, and his recent visit in Moscow, where he mentioned that climate change and cooperation, specifically in the Arctic, around climate change issues is of such a high priority that that must remain a separate and open track for dialogue with Russia. We are very much in one boat on a relatively small planet, and certainly cooperation where we can help each other to face our common challenges, such as climate change, pandemics, and other issues of that nature, I think is certainly in both of our interests. And frankly, it is in part in that vein that we see the importance of the relationships and maintaining our relationships with the Russian Far East regions. These have been developed over decades through the efforts of many people on both sides. We value those relationships, and that is most centrally what the Russian-American Pacific Partnership is about. We very much look forward to our next session, where we will have speakers representing the regions of the Russian Far East and some of the United States West Coast states. We hope that you will join us then. So again, thank you to all of our participants today. On to the RAPP meeting that follows. Thank you.